how are you going to be a good mom to your kids? And that's like one of my deep fears. So to hear that voiced is like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? They worried about, like bringing in, well, how are we going to go on family vacations if you have these other kids with these other needs? And are you going to be asking us to babysit these kids? They're looking at it as how's this going to affect me? And I think that's a normal, for someone who's never done something like this or seen it done, like, those are probably very normal questions, but it's good that it's been a year because it's given everybody time to sort of adjust.
Yeah.
And now I think my whole family is really excited.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So you actually had the chance, you and Gary, even before you were licensed, there is such a huge need in Arizona that the agency actually reached out to you and asked you to do respite at Thanksgiving time. Yep. So over a holiday, you did respite for 2 young boys.
Yes. How
did everyone acclimate to that? And was it practice, kind of?
Yeah, it was totally practice.
Okay.
It was an awesome experience. And it was on a major holiday on Thanksgiving. And so I didn't quite know how my parents would feel like, hey, can we bring a couple kids you don't know to Thanksgiving? But they were great with it. My mom even watched the boys a couple days when I had to go teach. But we had them with us for 12 days. And by the end, when we were, getting ready, knowing that their foster parents were coming back in town, like my parents were really sad to see them go. So in that short time of 12 days, even my parents and my grandma had like bonded to these kids and really invested in them. We took a bunch of pictures, like my kids have little bulletin boards in the room of pictures, and they all have a picture up with these boys.
Aww.
And they still talk about them. And it was a really good first experience and exposure. And the saying goodbye part for me and for the kids was definitely hard. I cried when they left,
But that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, then you made it through the first hard one.
Yes.
Can you imagine it being 30 days and then saying goodbye?
Yes. Like I think I will probably cry every time. And I think that's probably okay.
Yeah.
Our foster care instructor who did our classes, she did babies mostly. And she said every time she had to say goodbye to a baby, she would get rid of all the decorations in the nursery and redo it. And that was her like cleansing and like moving on, and helping her like heart heal was to like reset the nursery every time.
Oh.
Yeah. So I kind of like that idea. Well, decorating's fun anyway, but when I was a bedside nurse, I worked in the NICU for a couple years, and it's like that. Like you go every day and you take care of, a baby, and you love on them, you hold them like for days and days and days or weeks or months, and then they go home. And so I feel like God has kind of prepared me in a way to love on this sweet little vulnerable human and then be able to say goodbye when I have to.
I love how you were mentioning that your parents and grandma were even a little sad, because I think it's so cool that like this isn't just your family with your 4 kids and you and Gary, but like actually giving kids a chance to see what a big family can look like. Because I feel like so often, especially a lot of kids in foster care, either maybe were raised by grandma, or they have so many distant like relatives that aren't a part of their life, that to actually see like, oh, mom can have a mom and that mom can still have a mom, and you guys can see each other and do things together, and big and little, it's not just holidays for your family. You see your family often. Yeah. So I think having kids see that example is really cool. And also the boys probably picked up things from your mom that they didn't pick up from you, or maybe even your grandma that they didn't pick up from you.
That's so true. And it's funny, the older boy was 6 and he was fascinated with how everyone was related. Like he wanted to know everyone's.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And who is your mom and who is her mom? But the hardest, like that just got me so much. The hardest part was when they arrived, they were 6 and 4 and had been in foster care for years. And so he asked me, he's like, Miss Ashley, you have these 4 kids. Who's their mom? And I said, I'm their mom. And he's like, no, but who's their real mom? Like the idea that the kids were just living with their mom was really hard for him to grasp.
Yeah.
Like he asked many, many times, like, but who's their real mom? And that just broke my heart.
Oh,
I know.
Gosh, that's awful. Okay, let's do something happier. So I would say you and Gary were the first ones that you were like the youngest couple we ever met that legitimately had a great house in a decent neighborhood, like where we used to live.
Yep.
You guys were like working full time, didn't have kids, had a mortgage, very responsible, had 3 rescue dogs that were all sorts of weird. And then you moved, to another house in Chandler. Like you guys were always in nice suburb areas. And then one day you called and said, Gary was on Zillow and we want to lead a simpler life.
Yeah.
And cut our house in half and leave our fake grass backyard.
Yes.
Because we both have had the experience of having fake grass, which is enjoyable for a while.
Yes.
But not if you have dogs.
Right.
So what kind of led your family to switch, like basically your environment almost completely?
Yeah, it was a little bit COVID related. Like this happened during the pandemic. So, so we have 4 kids. I think 3 out of 4 were in school at the time, and everybody went home on computers, right? So trying to manage 3 kids, little kids, on a laptop was insane. Plus I had to teach from home on a laptop, but I had to teach live. So I had to be live streaming to my class while, 3 little kids are trying to do school and a toddler. And then Gary was a firefighter and he's going out into the community, which for a time was really scary. Like, I don't think Gary was ever that scared, but I was scared.
Gary, gosh.
He's like, I'll be fine.
We could do a whole podcast just on Gary. He is such a character.
I know.
I forgot about his hazmat suit. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah, he did not take the whole COVID thing very seriously, but he was going out all, into the community. And so, and the rest of us just all felt stuck, everyone like stuck in this house and stuck on the computer. And so he was on Zillow at night, like one night when he couldn't sleep at work. And, he saw this property in South Phoenix, and that was where our first house was, really, really close to there. And he got this like crazy idea. He's like, what if we sell all this and we just downsize and we have land? And I don't know what it is about men wanting land. There's something.
My gosh, Ryan's on a kick right now. Acreage? Did you say acreage? Animals?
I don't quite get it, but yeah, like the idea of having land. And I was like, okay, like, and so I was like, Gary, this is crazy. Like we have this beautiful house. That's perfect for our family, And he asked
what,
me,
mind you, was also like, 3 minutes from your mom's house?
Oh,
right?
yeah. Like across the street.
Yeah.
Yes. We had everything right. Like we were set. Everything was great. But he looked at me and he's like, what is your dream life? And I was kind of like eye rolling because I'm not a big dreamer. I'm like pragmatic planner. Yeah. Like if you won $1 million, what would you do with it? I hate that game. Like if I get $1 million, I'll figure it out. Why think about it now? He's like, what is your dream life? Like if you could have any life. And I was like, well, I don't know. Like I love animals. Like I would love to have a horse someday. Like I've always wanted to own a horse. And he's like, holding his phone up with the Zillow listing. And I was like, really? Like you want to do this? So we thought about it. And then, he loves telling this story that he got into his car one day to go to work and he turned his car on and, his phone's connected to his car, Bluetooth, and normally like iTunes will start playing a song or whatever. So for whatever reason that day, instead of iTunes playing, the Bible app started reading out loud to him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because it was probably open or something.
I don't know. Like he didn't think so. Like it was like, from God to him, like speaking to him from his
Bible
his
app.
experience. Yes. And it was 1 Thessalonians 4:11, which says, lead a quiet life, work with your hands, and earn the respect of others. And that just like, it was like a lightning bolt for him of like, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, let's teach our kids to, you know, practical skills. Let's be hardworking. Let's have this adventure on this property. Like, let's get out of, you know, I don't know, the status quo
and suburban life.
Yeah. And do something wild. Like, none of us had ever owned animals other than dogs or lived anywhere like this. So it was like an adventure, and it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love the farm.
So what are, of the farm, like, what are some of the animals that you've taken on?
Yes.
What does your morning look like before getting the kids off to school? Or do you come home and work on some of the things? Tell us about your animals.
Okay. One thing you should know if you get acreage, tell Ryan, people, when they hear you have space, they'll be like, oh, you have space. Do you want these goats? They drive me crazy. And that's what happened to us. Like, I think I bought chickens. I remember that, like, or actually Gary brought them home to me as a Mother's Day gift.
Thanks, Gary.
It was actually like the best Mother's Day ever. He brought me home baby chicks. But other than that, we haven't purchased any of the animals on the farm. Like, it has all been.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Even the pigs?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
It's always like, oh, you have space. Do you want them? We don't want these animals anymore. So, we have chickens and ducks, and then we got 3 pigs, when they were babies, and their brothers, and they're pretty standoffish. It's sometimes a game to see like who can catch the pigs.
Oh yeah. It's so fun.
Yeah,
we'll share a video.
And, we had got, 4 goats. We have 2 boy goats and 2 girl goats. And then we have 3 alpacas, which came from a fellow firefighter. Yeah. They had alpacas and horses, and they wanted more horses. And so they were looking for a place for their alpacas to go.
And what's the purpose behind alpacas? Do they graze?
None of our animals serve a purpose. I guess the chickens make eggs.
Yeah.
But you do shear the alpacas once a year.
Okay.
And then their coat can be spun into wool. And
yeah.
So I've given it to my sister's mother-in-law, and she has made stuff out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool.
I was like, you need it. I guess it's like a ton of work. Like, it's a hobby thing.
Oh.
It's not like a practical thing. It's like a crafting experience, but you can sell it.
Yeah. I've actually heard you can sell it too.
Yeah. So, but no, they're just, they're really just fun and therapy for me. And if I was a morning person, that's one of my 2024 things, is to try and get up earlier. My morning routine.
I hate the morning.
I hate the morning. And that's not good for someone who lives on a farm. My morning routine right now, and I think I'm an outlier on this, and I know that, and it will certainly change when I get foster care, but I get up at 6:45 and we leave the house at 7:45. So I get me and all 4 kids fed and lunches packed and me ready for work, and we all leave.
Which is
an hour.
Unreal to me.
Thanks for joining us today for the Sprinter Mom with Lashes On podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next week.